welcome back to the Minecraft Update Podcast. My name is FoxyNoTail. I am here with SlackLizard. How are you doing, Slack? What have you been up to this week?
Oh my goodness, this week, Foxy. This week for me in Minecraft has been, well,
hang on, stop.
Abort,
we've missed feedback section completely. We should
Oh my goodness. Get the bell. Wait a minute.
We should have a conversation first about just like, hey, how you doing? And then do the feedback. Oh my goodness, like this is so unprofessional and I'm probably going to leave it all in. Right, okay.
Okay, all right. Right.
Go for it.
But see, now it's all out of whack here. Cut, start again, do proper intro.
Okay.
You can leave it all in. I don't care. Just proper intro it.
Hello and welcome back to the Minecraft Update Podcast. My name is FoxyNoTail. I'm here with SlackLizard. How are you doing, Slack?
Doing good, Foxy. How are you doing today?
I am doing very well indeed. Did you enjoy the last podcast?
Actually, I did. And according to the people out there, a lot of people enjoyed the podcast as well. I'm just saying.
Yeah, we actually got a bit of feedback, although it wasn't through the email address that we so kindly provided. I actually got it all from the Discord and from the YouTube comments, but it was good. Starting with Mr. The Real Deal Pick. Slack, what did he say?
He said, I really enjoyed the podcast. I'm excited to see where it goes. And as a matter of fact, I think I've seen several people say that exact same thing in streams and or in my Discord over the last week.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see where it goes as well. I'm really looking forward to seeing the progression of this podcast and what we do with it, really.
Mm-hmm. Next on the list, we had the Eye of the Night, who said, wow, first Q&A question field, lovely answers. Felt a little bit special having it kicked off with my question, but from a first episode standpoint, I can see how it works. Setting a groundwork of what you would like and enjoy about the game you're doing on the podcast and what the podcast is about. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
It's not really one to respond to. Doesn't require much of a response, but thank you very much, Eye of the Night. I appreciate that. I'm glad you enjoyed being first on the questions. Next, we have Blue Shigatsu, otherwise known as Khaleesi in my Discord, who said, really enjoyed that. Thanks, Foxy. No Slack there. Do you notice that, Slack? It's really awesome hearing your views on things and getting an insight into things we don't ordinarily get with streams. Being pretty busy and chat going fast. Hope to see plenty more. And I think I just butchered that completely, Slack. But that, you get the gist.
Yeah. Hey, the gist of it is people are really happy about this. Now is it my turn to butcher something here?
Sorry.
Okay. No. We go back and forth. This is what we do. Okay.
Okay.
Next, we got rotated owl face. It's very, very smooth and professional. Is it scripted? Not enough, apparently, today, right?
We could do with a little bit more. A few notes might help. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, this is you talking about experts. You need to read this. You read the response. But yes.
Okay. Although reading from a script and making it sound natural is expert level 99 stuff too. Either way, scripted or off the cuff is very well done and very easy to listen to via Apple Podcasts. So I really appreciate that, Rotated Owl Face. It's very nice to know that it was of good quality and that it was, well, the conversation flowed well enough to sound like it was scripted, I guess. I was more interested in Rotated Owl Face's second piece of feedback, Slack.
Oh, dear God. I'd pay real money if I had any to be able to watch the whole of the quad spawner footage.
Yeah, no. No.
Oh, come on. There is some good stuff in there, Foxy.
I don't care how big the carrot is that you are dangling, Mr. Rotated Owl Face. That footage is under lock and key under pain of certain death. So no. Anyway, if you would like to leave feedback on this podcast, then please do send an email to the minecraftupdatepod@gmail.com. Put feedback in the subject line of your email so that we know that it's feedback. That'll be very helpful.
Yeah, it'd be nice. Mm-hmm.
Right, Slack. Now we can talk about this week. What have you been up to this week?
My week this week has been a rather interesting week. I've pretty much spent all week working on one project on TB in one episode, and that would be a mob farm. That's literally the gist of it. I tried to play a little bit on my Java server, and it's just like, no, I can't do that yet. If this makes any sense to you, I've branched into Java here the last few months, as you've seen with the hardcore series and other things. But if I start playing Java, then I don't want to play Bedrock.
Oof. Oof.
Yeah. So
Oof,
like
said
I started
TB.
I started playing it and I was like, no, I can't do that yet. I got to get more established before I can do that. But to be fair, I haven't got as much Minecrafting in this week as I wanted to, because I don't know how much news travels from what happens over here to over there. But we had some bad storms come through here this weekend, and my host schedule got out of whack. We had tornadoes come through the area, and we had one that was on the ground for almost 220 miles.
Jeez.
So yeah, that's caused a lot of chaos and havoc in my area, and it's really upset my schedule because I knew it was coming. We actually had advance warning. Now, you didn't know the tornado was coming, okay? But you knew that the storms were coming. So knowing that the storms were coming and that they were going to be bad, even though my girlfriend's in the UK and I work with people in the UK, I pretty much live on a UK time schedule. But these storms were going to hit at like 3 o'clock in my time.
Oof.
So I had to stay up way out of my normal sleep schedule right now just so I could be awake. And I'm glad I did, because it got really bad. It didn't get bad enough to the point where we had to evacuate. Me and my family were lucky to have avoided a lot of the disaster, but it did get really bad for a lot of people around here.
Yeah.
So my week's kind of been thrown off by that.
Not to make light of a situation, but the news did come across to the UK. I read the Sky News app, and there was an Amazon factory, which half of it, the headline confused me actually, because it said the storm does damage to Amazon factory roof, but the photo showed half of the factory inside out, which, shows a little bit more than a bit of damage to the roof. Like half the entire factory was gone. And I know a lot of people were affected by it. A lot of people lost their lives in those storms. So it is a really big, serious thing. So to just sort of miss out on a little bit of Minecraft, I think you did get off lucky, but it's certainly not a thing I would like to have to live through. So very lucky to live here in the UK where we don't get tornadoes. Jeez. Well, at least not very often.
To be fair, at the end of the day, it got very close, a lot closer than I would like. I was actually sitting here live on my second channel because I couldn't sleep that night. I needed to stay up, and I was streaming. Elder Scrolls, just hanging out, chatting. I had weather alerts up and everything like that. And long story short, the emergency alert went off on my phone. The device on the wall, it went off and everything. I checked it. I brought up the weather and everything, and they're like, storm tracking, tornado tracking in your area. Well, at that time, it had already updated to the point where that would have been too late. The tracking system would have been too late. It would have already been here. But thankfully, and I'm not saying this in a bad way, I'm saying this in a good way, the tornado that was on the ground for 220 miles directly tracked to where I live. But it literally picked up off the ground 3 miles away from my house.
Jeez. Wow.
Yeah, it was a lot closer than people realize. My admins and stuff know how close it was. My family knows how close it was.
Yeah.
We were almost in that whole mess in a bad way.
Well, I'm very glad that you weren't, Slack. I'm incredibly grateful that you weren't. So, yeah, please do be careful. Please make sure you have a big hole in the ground to dive in when the next one does pass across. I would appreciate that.
We're working on it. We are working on that. But enough about me and my crazy life. What about you this week? What's been going on with you, bud?
Okay, so this week I have done another YouTube live stream, and I know that doesn't sound like something that I would be particularly newsworthy, but it is, because it's so different from doing them on Twitch, and in such a good way. From a perspective of enjoying how chilled and relaxed they are on Twitch and how mature it seems on Twitch in terms of the conversation and the chat and stuff like that, YouTube is certainly a completely different kettle of fish. There is a lot more clearly younger people in the audience. There's a lot more people in the audience. But what I really like is they're all so keen to ask questions. So I never have to stop for a second to think of anything to talk about, because there's always another question for me to respond to, which I love. Because I don't know about you, but the longer I stream for, when I start hitting around about an hour and a half to 2 hours, my brain just turns to mush and I can't think of what to talk about anymore. And I hate going through big sort of dead spots of not talking about anything while I'm live streaming, because, well, I like to have something to talk about. So when there's just continual questions being asked, and really good questions as well, really interesting ones that I don't normally have to answer on Twitch because they're from a completely different perspective and a different viewpoint. They're really great. So I really enjoyed that. I had a great time, and I actually ended up going for 3 hours, which is more than 3 hours, which is an hour longer than I normally do, just because I was just really enjoying it. It's a big refreshing change being over on YouTube streaming, so I'm going to keep doing it. I'm not going to stop Twitch streaming, but I will certainly continue to do weekly YouTube streams.
Very nice.
I've also, this week, I recorded my Christmas Day episode of Truly Bedrock, which I also happen to have been working on a mob farm all week. But that's not the whole video, although it does feature quite heavily. And then on my last stream, there's a couple of things. On my Twitch stream, I went end raiding, which was, well, it leads me to a bug, really, or at least what could be a bug. I went end raiding for shulker shells because I'm desperately low on shulker shells. And somebody in the chat happened to point out to me that they'd done tests to say that if you have fire aspect on a looting 3 sword, the looting isn't applied. And I went into a creative test world to test that out during the stream, and I couldn't tell any difference whether there was looting or not. But what I think is they're probably referring to is if the mob dies of the fire aspect or they die of burning rather than you hitting them directly, then you're not getting the looting. As a result, I end raided for 2.5 hours and got less than 2.5 stacks of shulker shells, whereas previously I would have about 4 or 5, maybe even 6 stacks of shells, which was awful. So, yeah, I think there is a bug there, and we're going to be talking about that a little bit later on, I believe.
Yeah, potentially. One of my admins, well, my main admin, T-Man, had pointed me onto the fact that the looting 3 bug tracker on the Jira had been reopened just a couple days ago. So coincidental, I guess. Guess we'll have to see, won't we?
Absolutely. And the other thing I've done this week is actually something I did because of what we talked about in last week's podcast, which was to watch the Minecraft Now live stream, which I will admit I only watched an hour of, because I had a meeting directly after that while it was running on. But I think an hour was enough, to be perfectly honest with you. Did you see it, Slack?
I skimmed through it. It came on while I was live. I didn't realize that the times coincided with when I usually stream. And I skimmed through it, and it was just, I don't know. It was different. It was different for sure.
What I was really happy with is that I was concerned that if Lydia was part of it, I didn't know that she was going to be, but if she was part of it, that she was going to be her usual talking to everyone like the 5-year-olds like she does at Minecon, which I'm sure she's directed to do. That's not an attack at Lydia at all. I think she's great. But during Minecon, it really does feel like you're a nursery child rather than a Minecraft player.
Exactly.
And she didn't do that during this live stream. She was really natural. She was really normal. It felt a lot less pushed and scripted. You could see obviously parts of it were scripted, the sections that they were going into, but she just felt really natural, which was really nice to see her like that, because that's, believe it or not, what she used to be like at the original Minecons. But the live stream itself, it was so boring. It was really boring. They sold it as getting an insight into the development of Minecraft and talking to the developers, and you didn't get any insight into the development of Minecraft. There were 2 developers playing it with Iscal85, but they were just flying around looking at stuff that they'd done, basically patting themselves on the back and telling everyone what a good job they'd done in 1.18, which they have. But that's not why I was there. I wanted to hear, oh, yeah, this is coming and that's coming, or this is how they did this, or that's how they did that. But we didn't get any of those juicy little details at all. So that was a bit sad. And also, you know, I was looking forward to the fact that you were going to be able to talk directly to them in terms of asking a question in chat and getting a response. But the chat was so fast and furious, even on top chat mode rather than all chat mode. There was no way you were going to ask a question and get it answered on there. I think in the whole hour that I was watching, Lydia answered maybe 2 or 3 questions. I have no idea how she managed to find them, because it was just complete spam nonsense in the chat. So yeah, I'm not going to be going back to any more Minecraft Nows. I might, if somebody happens to say, hey, last week's or yesterday's Minecraft Now had some juicy information in it, I might watch the VODs or the replays. I'm certainly not going to be watching them live because I didn't enjoy it. It's not for me.
No, I would agree on that. It was not quite what I thought it was going to be hyped up to be. Now, I'll just put it that way. But if anybody out there in the community does watch it and sees anything of relevance that they feel we should know, absolutely share with us. And you can share with us, you know, at the MegaSpud at gmail.com. You know, just say news.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, please do if you're interested in watching it. And I just want to point across there or put out that I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's a bad live stream. It's just not for me. Go back to Minecon this year. Half an hour or so at the beginning of that was just people screaming and shouting, playing, what was that, MC Rising? That's not me. That's a much younger audience of people that they're aiming that at, which is where these Minecraft nows are. So if you're younger, if you are, I don't know, late teens, early 20s, and you're into running around screaming and shouting, then it's probably the sort of thing you could potentially enjoy. But if you are more mature, and I don't mean that in a nasty way, but if you're aged like a fine cheese like me, then you just want to find the info, cut in between all of the rubbish and the nonsense, and get to the good stuff. I haven't got time for all of that sort of stuff at my age, so yeah, it's not for me. But yeah, I'm sure it would be enjoyable to a lot of people. In fact, it was, because it had hundreds of thousands of people's watching. So clearly, they were doing something right. Anyway,
did you just say you were cheesy?
I'm very cheesy, Slack.
Okay, all right. Okay, all right. Well, interesting.
Well, now that we've got our weeks out of the way, I believe it is time to move on to the news. Now, how would you like to do the news this week, Slack? Last time, I think, did you do the news or did I do the news?
You did the news.
Should we take it in turns again?
We can. Can I mention the first topic here because it really concerns me?
Yeah.
What is that? KingBDogz?
KingBDogz, yeah.
With an article that says you can eat the Warden.
Yeah.
Please explain.
That's as much as we've got. It actually started as a reply to somebody else on Twitter. KingBDogz threw out a very, very quick reply that didn't really say much, just to say you can eat the Warden, and that was it. That was the only words. And then he later clarified on his own thread, on a whole tweet of his own, to say, after the popular demand for me to speak on this, I'm happy to announce and confirm that yes, you can eat the Warden. So that can only mean, potentially, that the Warden is going to have a drop, which they said it categorically will not have a drop, and that you can eat that drop. Or there is another way that they haven't told us about that you would be able to somehow eat the Warden. I don't know.
I have no words for this. I genuinely have no words. No.
No. Any thoughts on how it might be possible or what it might taste like?
No, which leads us kind of to the next topic. Okay, go ahead, please.
Well, I just want to clarify that the first few news stories have all come from Twitter. Okay, We've got like this whole Twitter section because the developers have gone nuts on Twitter this last couple of weeks. So
exactly,
yeah. The next one, again from KingBDogz, is saying that the Sculk, Shrieker and Warden are working really well on Bedrock Edition, which is good to hear that they're developing it on Bedrock Edition. Because did you know, Slack? KingBDogz, obviously a Java developer, is doing the C++ development work for Bedrock Edition for the Warden and the Sculk stuff as well. So he's pretty much learning on the job, from what I understand.
Well, that's good, because that means then, I say that's good, and it honestly makes me kind of nervous too. Yeah, because that could, if you have developers working on both versions of the game, potentially help in parity issues.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, I love that the games are different.
Yeah, but I think they've said categorically that updates going out from, I think, was it like 1.14 onwards, should be like with complete parity. And we know there are some things that Bedrock hasn't had that Java has had just because of the limitations of the platform and vice versa. But after all of the problems they've had with the Warden and the Deep Dark, announcing it, taking it back, announcing it again, I would be amazed if they let this come out and it was riddled with bugs. So, and he does point out in his tweet that him, Torstling, Marcio OS, and Nembom MC and others, it says, have all been working hard to bring the Warden and other Sculk blocks to life. So he's not on his own, but the fact that he is taking part in that actual development on Bedrock Edition of the game, to me, means that he's not going to be he's not just going to be a developer that's not been involved in it, that gets a list of, hey, this is what the Warden looks like and this is what it should do, and then getting a different interpretation of it on Bedrock, which is what we've had before on certain things. So I think this is a great piece of news. I think I'm really excited.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. And actually, I would actually prefer. I know we're talking about how, hey, they introduced it, they removed it, they introduced, they removed it, they delayed, they delayed, they delayed. Honestly, I'd rather it be a situation like this where the developer works on both versions and we get their proper interpretation of it from the word go.
Yeah, absolutely. If they could do that for all of the features going forward and maybe even sort of retrospectively on some of the old ones, that would be absolutely fantastic. But we will see, I guess.
I guess we'll see. Which leads us to our next one here from CornerHard. Java
Being able
Realms.
to see further.
Java Realms having an updated to their render distance.
Yeah. So last week we also talked about the fact that Realms have had a bit of a performance boost, and we were talking about people saying that increased simulation distance and render distance on Bedrock Edition Realms might become a thing. Well, that hasn't been announced, but CornerHard has announced that in 1.18.1, the Java Edition update greatly improves the in-game fog. But we've also increased the view distance and an extra chunk on Java Realms, which means that they can now see 10 chunks and simulate for 9 chunks. So there's still disparity there between the two versions, but the fact that they were only on 8 chunk or 9 chunk view distance on Java Realms, that's really short, whereas Bedrock's always been on 10, but they're still now simulating at 9, whereas Bedrock's still only simulating at 4. So,
But that is a new thing for Java. Simulation distance was only added, I think, in 1.18, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Yeah. And I think they've still got some significant work to do on it by the sounds of things.
But it's a step in the right direction if we're going for parity between the two versions.
It is. I just hope they don't overstep and the fact that they've given more performance to Realms is fantastic, and that gives me confidence that Realms are going to be much better. I don't want them to then be bullied by the technical players to update or give us more of these things without us having the ability to toggle them back again and then sort of negate that effect of having more power. If you've got more power and a little bit more simulation distance and view distance and it's locked and therefore it's still laggy and buggy when you've got more than 3 people online, they're really not going to improve anything.
Exactly.
So, yeah, please make it optional. Thank you very much, developers.
Yes.
Appreciate it, mate.
We love toggleable options. Just saying.
Yes. And there's no reason why it shouldn't be, because it's just a server running at the end of the day with a server properties file. So I don't see how it could be that difficult for them to add in toggleable options for Realms when so much more of the Realms are just toggleable in-game. It's just a UI change, surely, you would think.
One would hope.
Okay, so moving on from render distance to things a little bit closer to you, and that is Tadpoles in Buckets, which was announced again on Twitter by LadyAgnes. She put a picture on Twitter of a little pool full of tadpoles and a tadpole in a bucket, and basically says, "We have tadpoles in buckets for the wild update. Adorable texture by W. Chiwi." What do you think to that, Slack?
They're great. They're. Can I? The technical side of me, Foxy, wants to go, what's the point in these guys?
Yeah.
I mean, really? Oxalotos, dolphins. Is it just to drive people in and look at the pretty animals? I don't know, but I guess that's the beauty of Minecraft. There's a million different ways to play it. It's great. I love to see the updates, and they're constantly working on things, but I'm just like, tadpoles, what am I going to do with those? It's another entity that's going to lag my game.
They could add to the game, yeah. Why tadpoles? Why tadpoles? Now, there is this overwhelming desire at the moment for Mojang to come up with things that are cute, and I don't quite understand. But I agree with you. There is obviously an audience for that. Otherwise, they wouldn't be doing it. My worry with these tadpoles more than anything is, are they going to slip through the cracks between our hoppers and end up with thousands of them just turning into frogs stuck in a hole somewhere?
You all can't see my face right now, but I just gave Foxy a death stare through the camera. I'm just saying. That's just a horrible idea. You just shut your mouth. Don't ever bring that up again. Ever.
I didn't jinx it. I don't know what you're talking about. Okay, this next one, again from Twitter, is from MegaSpud, our good friend Jay, who I've talked to quite a lot over the years about bugs and things like that. What's your relationship with Jay? Have you had a great deal to do with Jay?
I haven't had a great deal to do with them, but I know who they are, and I monitor what they say.
Okay, well, let's talk about what they said first, but then I've got an interesting spin on this one.
Okay.
They started off with a megaphone emoji saying, "Parity!" Okay, now that I've got your attention, if you could add 1 or 2 smaller parity features to Minecraft Bedrock Edition, what would you add and why? And then let us know here with a link to a survey. Then it says underneath that on the thread, to be clear, we're still looking into the topics everyone has already mentioned on the feedback site, but we want to get a quick, up-to-date snapshot of the smaller things that you would like to see now that Caves and Cliffs Update Part 2 is out. Slack, what do you think?
Are they trying to throw us a bone? More or less. I mean, we've wanted some parity adjustments for a while now. At least a lot of the community does. I love that a lot of things are different, but some things probably do need parity. Probably do. Like, you go into this one first. Let's see where you stand on this.
Well, you were looking at this, as I'm sure most people would, and as I did originally, and thinking, oh, this is an opportunity for us to get more parity in the game. I don't think that's what this is. I think this is cynical FoxyNoTail coming out. Can you believe it, Jack? Slack, whatever your name is.
Whoever you are.
Yeah, that guy that sat there in Discord, right? The feedback site that they have been for the last, year and a half, 2 years, been trying to push everyone to do their feedback requests, parity requests. Jeez, Slack, my words today. Basically, they have been on a mission to get as many people as possible to start using the feedback site on Minecraft.net to ask for features in the game or ask for parity changes and things like that, rather than just shouting about it on Twitter and in YouTube videos. That's what they've been saying. But I think this tweet clearly indicates that the feedback system doesn't work, because the whole idea of the feedback system is you go, oh, this would be a cool idea for Minecraft. You make a post and then people vote for that post. Problem with that is there is no time relevance to it. It doesn't say how recent this is, how appropriate this is for this particular update of Minecraft. And there can be posts on there that are 2-3 years old that have thousands of votes that have not been added in. And then Mojang look at that and go, hey, this is a big one, but this was done ages ago. Do people still want this?
Exactly. I'm looking at this right now. Java parity, spectator and hardcore game mode, Bedrock edition. It was made June 8th, 2018. You're right. Continue on, please. I'm just wow.
Exactly. So this to me is a tweet basically screaming out that feedback set website is failing miserably at actually giving them a clue of what people want. Certainly because people's wants and needs change. You might not want the same features now that you did 2 years ago. They can't just go on the feedback site, well, we're going to just turn off all of the feedback that we got this, over a certain amount of time because of this. So they need a system that's going to tell them this is still relevant. The fact that they're now jumping back to Twitter and asking people just shows you how good Twitter is at them getting an up-to-date snapshot of what people want and why they don't just use that in the first place to try and monitor that. Why are they not just going, hey, guys, what do you want? Trolling through all the responses on Twitter, adding those to a system somewhere and just sort of regularly asking those questions. Yeah, it'd be a lot more work for them internally, but at least they're going to know what people actually want rather than referring to a site with historical old information that's no longer valid.
I mean, that's like going back to the beginning of Truly Bedrock and the first season or season 0 and being like, hey, let's do this again. It's not going to work. It's not relevant anymore because that was like pre-Village and Pillage and everything else. I'm looking at this site and most of these tickets are suggestions, feedbacks, whatever you want to call it, 2018, 2019. They're just neglected. They're literally neglected. Thousands and thousands of votes. And it's just like, yeah, no. No,
exactly. And Mojang is thinking, do people even still want these anymore? These are old. This hasn't been voted on in a long time, So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what becomes of that.
Well, an interesting side effect to note from this too is they pushed everybody to this feedback site. We as a community came over here. We tried to engage our communities. Hey, go over here, vote on this or feedback on this. If you want this, let's make our voice heard. And it just got ignored and ignored and ignored and ignored. And after so long, you're just like, why? Why do we even say anything? We just accept it now. We just accept it as it is. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, the site's dead except for just a few people. Well, there's reason. Acknowledge us.
It doesn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah, quite. Okay, the last piece of news from the Twitterverse is a big one, Slack. It's a very big one. but we don't know how big, why it's big, or, if it's a big one at all, really. Basically, Alexander Ostman said, now don't jump to any conclusions, which of course we all did immediately as soon as we read that, but the next Bedrock beta might have something fun in it. To which KingBDogz, prolific Twitter person and developer, said, what do you think? With a finger over your mouth, sort of keep quiet face emoji. What's happening?
I don't work there. I work here. I don't know.
What do you think? What do you think's happening? Come on.
I'm not speculating nothing. No, getting me to speculate. No. What do you think is going on, Foxy?
Well, I'm going to assume that the next beta is probably going to be the first 1.19 snapshots, and I think we'll probably get frogs or something like that, but I'm not 100% sure. I was expecting the beta to come out yesterday as of recording this. We're recording this on the Wednesday. Generally speaking, they drop Tuesday evenings, Wednesday mornings, the betas. We haven't had one for 2 weeks, and we haven't had one yesterday. We haven't had one today. Maybe we'll get one tomorrow, but maybe we'll get one after Christmas or before Christmas or through the Christmas period. I don't know, but whatever it's going to be interestingly big. Possibly.
I'll tell you what would be nice. That would be fun for me, as if the betas were separate. Just saying, I didn't have to.
Rather than everything being in experimental mode.
I didn't have to opt through and do the craziness. If it was just, hey, you can just download this separate and test it. Yeah, that'd be nice. Not tied to my Microsoft account and break everything. You know about that, right?
Well, yes, but then they are moving everything slowly over to the experimental toggles in game. So there is a surprising amount of stuff even in the stable release now that is coming in the betas that's in the experimental toggles, and even more so in the experimental toggles of the betas. So yeah, I completely agree with you. The entire beta system is awful, but I can't help but think that is coming to an end at some point. It's got to.
It may.
People have been asking
the new
for
launcher and everything
constantly.
too. Yeah, new launcher.
Exactly. I would be surprised if this time next year we're still complaining about having to join the beta. Just in my personal opinion. Or at least I hope so, because it's an absolute nightmare. Every single one of my accounts, bearing in mind I've only ever joined the beta on one and unjoined, I've unenrolled from it, only ever done that on one account, but because all of my different accounts for Chuck, Big Chicken, basically I have a good account for each character, all of those have at some point logged on to the same PC that my main account is on that was in the beta once but isn't anymore. Every single one of them are now rolled in and locked into the beta. So I cannot download the stable release version of Minecraft legitimately on any device or on any account.
Sorry,
so I have to use the version switcher. I have to use Mr. Arm's MC launcher and wait for the latest version to come out on that to get it, because I can't get it through the Microsoft Store. I can only get the beta version. It's horrendous. It drives me insane. So yes, please fix it.
1 year from now, Foxy, hey, you want to download the newest version? No, I can't, because I'm still enrolled in the beta. Well, the beta program's been gone for 6 months. I know.
I know. Yeah, I can see that now. Right, moving on to other news. There is some big news this week. I'm sure you're all sick of hearing it. We'll get to that in a moment. First of all, interestingly, Minecraft is closing in on 140 million active users per month. That's a lot of people playing Minecraft all at once, Slack, don't you think?
That's a whole lot of people. That's wow.
Interestingly, if you look at this article, it doesn't say outright, but it does seem to suggest that it's Bedrock Edition rather than Java Edition, because it was actually Microsoft's Chief Executive Officer, Satya Nadella, who revealed this during the company's latest financial update. And I don't know, that it doesn't say it, but I just get the feeling that they're not going to address Java Edition because it's not Microsoft's baby like Bedrock Edition is. What do you think?
Well, let's just say that Bedrock is the moneymaker. There's no way to deny that. With the marketplace, the regular scheduled content coming out on that, the sales of the game on multiple platforms. I mean, they get a one-time sale off of Java, and that's it. Everything else you can do in Java, you can just download for free, more or less. Exactly. So Bedrock, I'll argue that Bedrock will be the future of the game eventually. Let's face it, all programming languages eventually die. I think one of these days, Java, the version of that will not get updated no more. And Bedrock will be the flag runner of Minecraft. I know a lot of people, I'm preposterous. Well, there's cult followings for every game. There's still people who play Quake to this day, the original Quake. It just may not be supported anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, plenty of games being cancelled and picked up by the community and continued in that way. Yeah.
Yeah, so Minecraft closing in on 140 monthly active users on Bedrock Edition. Maybe that's why we're also getting a little bit more attention on Twitter with, hey, what parody features would you like? Somebody's noticing that, oh, we got more people playing Bedrock than Java now.
Yeah, exactly. And interestingly about that, Slack, what I find particularly interesting, if you read the article, it says the number of engaged players Minecraft has right now is 30% higher than the same period last year. And bearing in mind, the same period last year was, according to when this article was released, a lot of people were in lockdown and staying at home at that point. So, because it's basically the date range it's got is January the 1st to March the 31st. That's where the figures have come from. So that point last year, not everybody, but a lot of people were in lockdown, right?
Oh yeah, well, that a lot of people stuck home, having to pick up new habits, so.
Exactly. So, but that's this year. That's this year when there's no lockdown, 30% more people than there was last year when there was.
Well, that could go back to, let's say you picked up the game on your Xbox while you were home or on your PC while you were in lockdown, and suddenly, lockdown's lifted in your area and you're able to get out and you're able to work and do things again. But you enjoyed the joy of Minecraft. And guess what? Minecraft is, well, what do they say? Better together. And you can play it on your phone, your Android, your iPad, pretty much everything. So yeah, that would lead to people still wanting to play the game if they've gotten where they've enjoyed the game. So
yeah, I guess so. And that leads us on to the fact that YouTube have announced and even put a video out congratulating quite a lot of the old school and some of the more modern, larger Minecraft creators, saying thank you very much for 1 trillion views on YouTube for Minecraft content. Does that blow your mind?
I can't put a number to 1 trillion. How many stacks of something would that be?
A lot. Well, let's put it this way. I went to the link that it showed. There was an article for this, and on the link it said, how many Minecraft videos have you watched? And there was an option to put in a number and then a calculate button. And I thought, well, no idea how many I've watched, so I'll put in 400 because I thought that seems like a reasonable number of videos that I've personally watched over the last 10 years or so of watching Minecraft content. When I clicked calculate, it told me that I had watched I think there was like 7 or 8 zeros, 4% of the videos watched by everybody. So, it's such a ridiculously large number. It's inconceivable. Slack. It's basically like saying infinity views.
I'm trying to math over here. How many slots are in a double chest?
54.
Okay, so that's the equivalent of 54 double chests full of shulkers. No, okay. So 54 slots. 10,716. That's the equivalent of how many chests would be full of shulkers full of stacked items.
Jeez. Okay.
That's a lot.
This is quite a lot, isn't it? That is quite a lot.
Can we farm
anyway? Before we get to the big piece of news, there is one piece of speculative news that I found. It's an article that I found that said, what about RTX on Xbox? Basically, the discussion was that the Xbox is capable of RTX. It has a ray tracing powered graphics card. I believe the PlayStation 5 does as well. And Mojang or Minecraft were saying that it will come to Xbox at some point, but there's been no sign of it and no news about it from anybody internally for well over a year now. And they're wondering if it's going the same way as the Super Duper graphics pack. What do you think to this, Slack?
I would totally agree on that. I mean, literally, the Super Duper graphics pack got shelved for RTX. We know that now. Yep. That's what happened to that. And RTX was supposed to be one of those things that was going to be coming to consoles and everything else. And everybody had to have the new generation of the console. I remember that because they were like, oh, some versions of the Xbox won't be able to support it and everything like that. And it's like excuse after excuse after excuse. And I'm not saying it's not a valid excuse. I'm just saying I'm in agreement with you. I think it's going to eventually go the way of Super Duper graphics, and it's just not going to happen on consoles.
Do you think they're just going to bin off RTX? Because there's not been a lot of shouting about RTX recently, has there?
No, there hasn't. Well, me and you have had personal conversations about this before, that it feels like it was a partnership deal to promote NVIDIA and promote Minecraft at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely.
It feels like the decision was
beneficial partnership that NVIDIA had to do all the work on. Yeah.
Yeah, and it felt like it was done by the higher ups in Microsoft, not Minecraft.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if there was an exclusive, I don't even know if that's the right word, an exclusive deal there. And eventually when that deal ends, are we going to be getting access to other types of shaders on Bedrock or anything? Because right now our hands are tied. It's really struggled to get anything interesting. So I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I love RTX. I think it's beautiful in game. I do. But one, you got to have the graphics card that can support it. And two, it's very limited on what you got right now. Maybe that's because it's still newer technology, but I don't know. I feel like shaders on Java get more love than RTX on Bedrock.
100% agree with you there. We've never been told. Maybe there is news articles out there. I don't know, but it feels to me like that's right. There was an exclusivity agreement between Microsoft and NVIDIA to say that we will only allow you to use this ray tracing capabilities on NVIDIA powered devices, which Microsoft then bundled the Xbox Series X with an AMD powered graphics chip that is ray tracing capable, and so did PlayStation 5. Both of them use AMD powered graphics cards. So I would say, as far as I'm aware, might want to double check my notes on that one, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. So in my mind, if that is true, which I think it is, but now I'm questioning myself, that would explain why we haven't seen RTX come over to the consoles yet, when so many other games are boasting about being RTX enabled now on those consoles.
That is an interesting concept.
And like you say, yeah, we've got no shaders. The other thing that's interesting is that they've now put Render Dragon on Android devices, which has removed the ability to have third-party shaders on those as well. But obviously, they're not going to be able to have RTX. So I'm not 100% sure that the significance of losing shaders because RTX have got exclusivity is the right answer. I just think this new Render Dragon engine, it was probably too much effort to add in support for third-party shaders when they're not going to make any money from it, and it's not going to enhance the experience for most of their users that are probably playing on lower-end devices that can't support them anyway.
I don't know. It's an interesting one. It would be nice to have more details on what's really going on with that.
It would be lovely to have some sort of update from Mojang to say, hey, RTX is here to stay and it's coming to these platforms, or, RTX was a great experiment, but it's not what we cracked up to be, so say goodbye to it. It would also be nice to know where they stand on third-party shaders, but I'm pretty sure we're going to be shouting about that for the next 3 or 4 years at least. So, moving from that to our final piece of news, which is kind of a double-barrel piece of news, because Java 1.18.1 has been released, which is great. It doesn't really do a great deal other than reduce world fog and fixes an exploit, which would... Oh my goodness, how has this existed for so long? If you haven't heard about this, basically there is an export in Java-enabled devices called the log4j exploit, which allows anybody with a connection to your server or Minecraft in game chat. This is how people were accessing it through Minecraft. They could actually type commands into game chat and access your PC, giving them full access to it, which allowed them to install things like crypto mining software on there or download your data. Basically, it was a whole world of disaster. And this all came out over Twitter, all very, very quickly. And lots of companies were jumping to put fixes out very quickly. Java put that fix out straight away in 1.18.1. They have put patches out there that are available on a URL that I will put into the show notes for servers pre-18.1. All the way down to Minecraft 1.7 servers, which will be affected by this. Servers before Minecraft 1.7 weren't affected by this. So basically the Java version was old enough to not be affected by this. But this doesn't just affect Minecraft. It also affects website servers and basically anything that uses this log4j thing to connect or to talk to the internet. So if you run a website or if you've got like hardware that is connected to the internet that uses this sort of technology, then you need to get it patched, fixed, and lock down your server as quickly as possible, because according to somebody that is very, very networky in my Discord, they've basically said people are running bots to automatically find systems with this around the world and inject their systems with crypto mining software, which obviously reduces or massively slows down your system, and you don't want it on there, basically.
How does that get put in? That feels like that was I really need a way to make some money. Let me just leave a piece of code off of here so I can. No, it feels wrong. I don't know. I'm not a server person.
I don't think that's one that's put in. I think this is one of those system. These. You know how like when Apple release a new iPhone and they patch all of the ways that people use to what's it called, when jailbreak your phone, right? People find a way into jailbreak the phone, and then they put out software for it so people can jailbreak it, which is not actually illegal, but Apple hates it because they don't want you to do it. So every time they release a new version of iOS, they patch out all of the ways to do it, and people find new ways to exploit the software to get into it. It's just basically they find a little tiny hole in the code in order to do what they want to do and find their way in. And this is exactly that. No one's put this in. This is a bug that no one's really noticed. It's been out there since Minecraft 1.7 at least, that now people have realized is there. And now that they know about it, and now the news has traveled around the world, everyone's panicking because obviously the more people that know about it, the more people that can exploit it.
Just no. No. What I'm grateful of is that everybody has jumped on this to fix this relatively quickly as soon as it became known. But it makes you wonder how many people have been affected by this and not known about it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I'm sure we won't see those numbers for a long time. But what I would like to say is, if you're hearing this news and you've heard this news already and you are panicking or you've panicked, don't panic. Because this doesn't affect just normal people playing Minecraft. It also doesn't affect Bedrock Edition, which is what the majority of the players are. And unless you are running servers, and it doesn't have to be a Minecraft server, it could be, like I say, web servers or any type of server that uses this particular code structure, I guess, that's going to be a very small proportion of people compared to how many people actually play Minecraft. So the 140 million active monthly users, there's probably going to be less than 10% of those users that actually run servers. And it's the servers that are affected, not your client computer. So don't panic if this has affected you, or if you think this is affecting you. Go to the Minecraft.net article and just check it out. And obviously just read the news articles surrounding this for other things as well.
Exactly.
I can't believe that's all you got to say about it, Slack. I thought you'd be, screaming.
I'm not.
You run a lot of servers.
I don't know much about them. I run them. I have somebody else that manages them. I myself don't understand the vulnerability to the degree of what it is. What I'm glad of is, as soon as it was known, the people that I'm partnered with fixed that problem immediately for their servers, and like the next day the update rolled out from Mojang to fix their version, and I'm glad everybody was fixing it. I just maybe I'm a fool that just doesn't know. I don't understand the full power of what this exploit allowed people to do.
No, and to be perfectly honest with you, most of it goes over my head as well, and I'm just sort of repeating things that I've heard from other people. But you know, I'm not worried about it personally. Like you, I'm very glad that the people are working on this, and it seems that there's a lot of information out there to make this as easy as possible for people to be able to patch it and fix it. So fingers crossed that's the last we hear of that. I'm sure it won't be, but you never know.
You never know.
So, Slack, moving on from the news, where are we going next?
Well, let's head back to everybody's friend that everybody gets to see all the time. Bugdates.
Yay! It's Bugdate time. We need a Bugdate jingle, Slack.
That we do. So, Foxy, this week on the Bugdate, you are the bug magnet. Is there anything new you would like to report this week?
I am the bug magnet dogs. Do you know what? The only thing that has actually... Oh, hang on a minute. My dog is traipsing through the room with her nails. Nelly, go lay down. The only thing that I've found to be a particular annoyance this week, apart from the lighting glitches that I mentioned last week, is the coloured text on signs is still too desaturated. It's just not bright enough. Unless you use glow ink on signs, you can't read coloured text on signs. It's too dark. And I find that really frustrating because the glow ink signs are still really, really laggy. And I went on Truly Bedrock to put a sign up in the spawn area with some nice red and white Christmassy text on it, and you couldn't see it. Unless you get right up to it and squint, you can't read the text, which I find it's amazing that that's still happening, because that can't be that much of a difficult fix, because when you're typing it in on the sign, it's the right colour. It's only when you press enter and it appears on the sign that it goes dark.
I'm wondering if, is this something you could fix with a patch?
I don't think so. It's not texture based. I don't know. I could look into it, but I don't think so.
Yeah, it is really annoying because I do the whole failed tree redemption and I like to put people's name on the signs. And I've currently got a bunch of signs around my base and I don't want to hit them with the glow ink because we know from testing that just generates lag. So here I am. I'm typing these people's names out. I'm using the special colors and it's just dull and boring. And it's just like, come on now. We had a system that worked perfectly well. Perfectly well. You introduced a new mob. Yay. And a new way to already do what we were doing with the signs originally. And now it's the signs are even more broke. I just,
I remember when they were first implementing this, we were on Truly Bedrock Season 2. And that was when do you remember they put the glow squid in and then they took it out again?
Yep.
So when they first put it in, the signs still worked perfectly.
Yep.
But then they took the glow squid away because they said it was too broken. And they put it back in the beta again a bit later. And that's when the signs broke. So the first iteration that we had the glow squid, the signs still worked the way they should work. It wasn't until they put them in again and said it was fixed that they broke. So
please go back, look at your off change logs and fix.
Yeah, please go back and fix it. It's really annoying that we can't read the signs now when you've supposedly made it easy to read the signs. Slack, there's a few more bugs that I've got listed on here, but I'm going to talk about those after you've gone through yours, and I can see you've got quite the list.
Most of my list is just old bugs that seem to be coming back to life. I mean, the first one that I have up here is 150707, which is, let me just break that down for everybody else. All text-related events on realms are buggy and or broken. What does that mean? You could potentially type something in chat and it take like 30 minutes for it to go through. Try to name something in the anvil. Nothing happens. You have to wait for that to process. Apparently that's been a bug that's been going on for a while now. And it's just still just utterly broken. Just, how does that get broken, Foxy?
I don't know how something like that happens, Slack, but that is really frustrating. There's nothing worse in anything, whether it's a game or on your phone or on your TV. When you press something and you are waiting for a response, it feels like your batteries have run out or it's crashed or there's a problem. It's frustrating, and sometimes, it's quite angering when you're really trying to do something and you're pressing the button and you're expecting something and that your expectations are not being met. And then all of a sudden you do get a wave of everything that's happened, and then you just look like a spammer that's been writing the same thing in the chat for the last 20 minutes when the entire stream then becomes everything that you've written. So yeah, I think it's an awful bug that needs fixing as quickly as possible.
Yeah. So then there's that one. Then there's the one that I brought up last week, the 21416, which entities mobs despawning randomly. Well, apparently that's been linked to another one. Let me open this up here real quick. That now lost all pets, entities, and NPCs when log out or leave the area. I mean,
yeah,
they can't identify what causes all these mobs to just disappear. Is it chunk borders? Is it closing the game, leaving the area? Is there any other options that it can be, Foxy?
I don't know, but I'll tell you something. This is the first time this week that this has happened to me, and it wasn't after a log out, and it wasn't after leaving the area. I was, like you, this week working on my mob farm, and there are 4 hopper minecarts in my mob farm that do the collection.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't chunk align the farm, so I know that they all run over a chunk line, which is frustrating. And I was facing in one direction, AFK, with a 10-minute timer on. I have the clip from before I did the timer that shows that all 4 hopper minecarts were there, And then I have a clip from directly after the timer had finished, and I turn around and 2 of the hopper minecarts have vanished and all of the items are just there despawning. So for me, I haven't even left the area. I was just facing the other way from the entities. So
now, had you logged out of the game and logged back in? No? Okay, then I have nothing then. No, then I can't explain that one at all. Had you logged out, I might be able to say something, but no, I got nothing for you there then. So apparently entities despawning is apparently getting worse because this bug tracker that I opened up here, which one was this? 144208. That's gotten 300 upvotes just since October.
Yeah,
it's
not good.
No,
it's not good at all, because entities are one of the hardest things to deal with and work with in Minecraft, and it is intentionally so that you don't end up with millions of them, particularly villagers, when you can spend hours and hours rolling them to get exactly what trades you want, putting them in the exact right places, and on Bedrock Edition, linking their workstations in the correct order and keeping it that way, because there's no pathfinding linking like there is on Java Edition, to then just turn around or log in or go through your nether portal and come back and they've gone, is one of the most... it's awful. The feeling of it just makes you want to cry and never play Minecraft again. It really is devastating when things like that happen. So, yeah, that I don't know how they're going to fix it, but they need to. That needs to be top priority.
Yep. And I got a couple more listed there as well, but we're not going to go into everything. The one I am going to bring up, though, is bug number, 35307. And, of course, that's your favorite. Looting. Looting enchantment does not properly increase the number of items the mobs will drop. Now, this one was actually closed here a while back, and it's literally just been reopened in the last few days. It's just been reopened in the last few days, and that would signify that since the latest hotfix that it's potentially gotten broken again.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Well, actually, I don't think it's the latest hotfix, because on Truly Bedrock, we are still playing on 1.18.1, and we did our first end raiding on 1.18.0. So I think this has been a 1.18 and above issue. We both know that when we went end raiding, we normally end up with a whole bunch of shulker shells. Now, it was interesting because when we went end raiding together, we went for the same amount of time. I was focusing on getting elytras. You were focusing on getting shulker shells. And when we got back, I had more shulker shells than you. Marginally more, but more.
And
but
I had
neither of us had very many.
And I had a looting 3 sword.
Yeah, and I didn't on that day. I didn't have looting 3 when we were fighting those. Now, when I went yesterday and I did my live stream on it, and I went for 2.5 hours just getting shulkers, I only got 2 and a bit stacks. And like I said, I did testing to see if it made any difference with fire aspect, which it really didn't seem to do. But it does seem like looting is having problems. But then I went into a test world and I used MCC tool chest to give myself looting 1000, and you still got a ridiculous amount of loot from what it was you were killing. So looting is working in one way or another. It's just clearly not working correctly. I don't think it's the multipliers may be off a little bit, or something's not quite right. Or maybe it's a little bit like our old block breaking bug, where if you've got an unbreaking on it and it doesn't activate the unbreaking, then the looting doesn't activate, or something like that.
Could be that. Could be something server related as well. I mean, there's so many possibilities. It could be having a specific amount of enchantments on an item. I don't know if you tested that yesterday when you were testing.
No, I didn't.
Like maybe just looting by itself and it works just fine. But what happens if you have looting and sharpness? Does it work? Or looting and sharpness and unbreaking? Or what about looting, sharpness, and unbreaking too? You know, it's like there's so many variations of where there could be a potential problem that it's just, that'd be hard to track down.
I think it would. But do you know what? Now that we've mentioned that, and now that I've thought about it with the unbreaking thing, I'm going to put money on it that that's a problem. And after we've done this podcast, I'm going to go into a test world and I'm going to test to see if unbreaking, when it activates, you know when it's activated because the item doesn't grow, right? You know when like you break something, the item grows to say it's used your ability. It just like flashes slightly bigger and then it goes small again. I'm going to test how many items I get from killing something with looting 3, when the Unbreaking 3 effect kicks in and when it doesn't, and see if there's a correlation, because I bet there is.
Now you got to also remember at the same time, the unbreaking bug at its core would work fine in a solo world, but it would be buggy on a realm or a server.
That's very true. So it could be server related as well. So more tests need doing. But anyway.
Yes. Yeah, anyways.
It's broken.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice to see that old bug has returned. So feel free to go upvote that one and watch that one if you would like. That's 3.5.
Yeah, I'd really appreciate if people would go to the Jira and update that one. Again, the links for all of these bugs are in the description or the show notes below.
Right.
So I made a little section in our Bugdate, because obviously I am the bug magnet, of interesting confirmed bugs to look out for, which there are 3 bugs in, and one called interesting bug fixes, which is actually a bug. So the first interesting confirmed bug to look out for is that nether portals do not spawn zombified piglins below Y0. So whatever you do, don't make your portal ticking farm below Y0, because you ain't going to get no piglins.
That just feels like that was just a section of code that was just missed.
Yeah. Oops.
Jeff. Yeah.
Jeff, definitely Jeff on that one.
That one's an interesting bug. Okay. What else you got?
Okay. Witches can despawn during raids, usually despawning instantly on a simulation distance of 4. So basically, if not at your raid farm, because everything's close to the player there, but if you are having a natural raid at a village, the raid party normally spawns outside of the village, which is usually outside of simulation distance, and make their way into the village. If that happens and it spawns witches, the witches just instantly disappear.
Good talk. Next.
And this next one is that strongholds don't have a chance to generate below Y0 at the negative Y levels, which I think we've come across on Truly Bedrock, don't you?
Yeah, I think I remember something about talks about that one being a bug that was really annoying.
Yeah, so if you have got an Eye of Ender and it's telling you to go to a particular place and you get there and there is nothing, it's because that Ender portal should have been generated below Y0, but the game just wouldn't do it because it can't.
That one's rough.
Okay.
That one's rough.
The interesting bug fix is actually listed as a bug, but in my mind, it's a bug fix. Now, Slack, do you remember, or have you ever exploited bone mealing crimson nylium to generate extra bone meal?
Yeah, you could generate more bone meal than you put into it. Yep.
Yeah, just like you can with moss blocks now.
Yep. Moss. Oh, yeah, moss. You really profit from moss. Yep.
Yeah. Well, what they've done, because they're nice, is they have fixed crimson nylium, so it's more like warped nylium, which means it produces fewer nether plants, which means you no longer get a positive return on your bone meal, which someone has then listed as a bug.
I could think of a lot of things that could be listed as a bug that I don't want fixed, so maybe it's best if we just stay away from that one. Wow, that's just
they fixed it. It no longer works.
Yeah, I'm literally looking at the bugs, the bug on it, and confirmed status, community consensus that it was a bug.
Yeah, so hopefully they'll look at that, agree that it is a bug, and fix it back again. But the fact that they've fixed it one way in the first place makes me think that that's working as intended now, rather than the correct way. So if you want extra bone meal, if you want a bone meal farm that produces more bone meal than you put in, the only solution on Bedrock Edition now is to use a moss-based farm, not a nice, easy to make crimson nylium one.
That is an interesting. I didn't even know that they had to reverse that and change that. That's right.
Yeah. So there you go. Which takes us to our pretty much final section. Is that right? Is it final section? No. Yeah, pretty much. Kind of a bit.
Yeah, that covers our bugs. That covers our This Week in Minecraft and the news. Yeah, it's time for the Q&A section.
With SlackLizard, who isn't, I wanted like an interesting thing like bug magnet for you, but I haven't got one for Q&A. It's the Q&A magnet.
Today's Q&A section hosted by SlackLizard, aka
Question
Good
Master.
Talk. Hey, good talk. How hard could it be?
Good talk guy.
Good talk guy. Right. So if you have any questions as well that you would also like submitted in the future to the podcast here, you want to tell them where they need to submit that, Foxy?
to the email, theminecraftupdatepod@gmail.com, and put question in your subject line so that we know that it's a question. That's the best place to do it. But if you don't want to do that, just nip into either mine or Slack's Discords and throw it in there, and I'm sure we can remember to add it to this if we remember.
Exactly. And speaking of somebody who did an email, we actually had an email this week from a name I can't read.
It's not actually letters. It's impossible to read it because they are symbols, not letters.
Okay. Well, the question...
So somebody
asked, what do you think about the new mobs that could have been added in 1.19?
Now, I believe this is probably whose English isn't their first language, because the question didn't make a great deal of sense. It was, what do you thinking about the new mobs that could have been added in 1.19? And what I believe this is supposed to say is, what do you think about the new mobs that will be added in 1.19? In which they are frogs and the Warden confirmed. And did they say that the ally wasn't going to be in 1.19, or it was in Minecon?
I'm not entirely sure on that one. I know it won the vote. That's all I remember.
Yeah, in the back of my mind, I seem to remember them saying it won't be in 1.19, but I may be wrong about that. Maybe they were saying it won't be in 1.18. I can't remember. But either way round, those are the three potential mobs that could be added. What do you think about them?
No, please. No. Look, literally, we've been talking about bugs, about entities despawning in the game constantly for no known reason. Quit adding mobs. Let us keep the ones we got first. Maybe I'm just finicky and touchy on that one. What do you think?
Do you know what? I'm actually really looking forward to the 1.19 wild update, and I really do hope that they cover more than just frogs and swamps. I really hope that they do a mountains update on us, and they go through all of the biomes and go, how could this be better? All those biome votes that we've had over the years, which we've had nothing back from. Do you remember when they said all of the losing votes will also get included in the game at some point in the future? I think this is the opportunity for them to do that. And if they do that, then I welcome new mobs into the game, providing that they're not overwhelmingly laggy and they're just millions of them everywhere, providing that they are few and far between. I'd like to go to a desert and see a vulture or a meerkat. I'd like to go to the swamp and see a frog or something else. And I think this is a good thing, but I agree with you that they do absolutely 100% need to stop them just from disappearing. But they're just having... Minecraft is a very lonely place on your own. It's a really lonely place. And just having some ambience in the world, just the noise of birds tweeting, you don't have to see them, or the noise of crickets chirping, can add so much of immersion to the game and make you feel not quite so alone when you're in it. So I think a few mobs here and there, like rabbits. You don't see rabbits too often, right? And it's nice to see a rabbit. When you see a rabbit, you're like, hey, look, a rabbit. Unless you live in the desert, like you have done before, which you probably see loads of rabbits. Mm-hmm. But generally speaking, you don't see too many rabbits in Minecraft. And when you do come across you, you think, hey, they've got quite a cool drop as well that's pretty rare to get. I wonder if I'm going to get one of those. So it's a nice experience. And I would like that with other mobs. But I don't want them all just to be based on something cute and furry and cuddly. I want them to have a specific reason for being into the game. Yep. So I want frogs to give us something, which they've said that they will. They said each different variety of frog will give us something unique to the player and items that they haven't even thought about yet. So I really hope, as long as they've all got a reason, as long as they've thought about ways that the technical community can farm them on Java and Bedrock Edition to make them interesting, then I'm all for it. But if they're just there just to be ambience and just to be cute and cuddly, then I'm not all that bothered, to be fair.
Yeah, let's go back to the dolphin. It kind of, you can use it on Java with the Grace. Well, no, let's be truthful, because you've seen people do super highways and stuff like that in the water.
Oh yeah,
but on Bedrock, it's pointless. It serves no point other than to eat up mobcap.
Yeah, you do get Dolphin's Grace on Bedrock. It just doesn't come up as a status effect, and you have no idea when or where you're going to get it.
Exactly. Yeah. That one's one of those that if we're going to have it, let's have that one with a little bit of parity. Just saying.
Parity, just saying parity. But then if we're going parity on Dolphins, please take away their ability to steal blocks on Java Edition rather than giving it to us on Bedrock. Just saying. I don't want that. Right, next question, Slack.
Next one is from Balrog. I'm guessing that's how you say that. And it says, for the podcast, will there be guests for the podcast in the future? And which guest would you look forward to having if you could dream up any visitor to it? Mozart, Obama, Notch, Foxy?
The fact that these examples of people that we might have to our Minecraft podcast is bizarre to me, Mr. Balrog. I'm sorry about that, but why would we want Mozart or Obama? I could understand why you would think Notch might be a good guest, but believe me, he wouldn't. I don't want to associate with that guy on any level at all, ever.
No.
But yeah, I know if I'm going to invite Mozart, might have an interesting perspective on a live on a Minecraft podcast because he's an artist, and you can be an artist in Minecraft to a certain degree. Maybe you like playing with note blocks, who knows? But I don't think it'd be much conversation for the rest of the for the podcast. You know, when we ask him what he's been up to this week, it's not going to be particularly useful information. Obama, I think there's many more things he would be better off doing than wasting his time on a Minecraft podcast. That guy needs to do important things for the world and not sit here with us. So yeah, totally pointless having people from history or important people in the world being here. But I absolutely would love to have people on the podcast, related people to Minecraft, content creators, players, developers, that sort of thing. And I suppose if I had a dream guest to be on the podcast, well, Stampy Longnose, maybe. He's got the reason why I started all this because of my son Jack. So yeah, to have him here and to be able to tell Jack that I was in a podcast with him, I think even Jack at 16 now would still have some words like nostalgia and happiness to hear that. So although I think Oliver, he's really into watching. I don't know if you've ever heard of them, Slack, but there's I can't remember their names now. 2 kids that play Minecraft and Roblox and all that sort of stuff that he's obsessed with, and he would love it if we had those on as well. So, yeah, for them, not for me. What about you?
As far as the big people, I really can't think of anybody. I mean, guests, I'd love to have guests on the show, and I think that's something that we will have in the future from other content creators, streamers, and everything like that. But on a serious note of who I would like to have on the show, developers. Like people who are doing hard code. Yeah, Jeff. Yes. I would love to sit down and have a chat with Jeff on why things happen the way that they do. Yes. I don't think we would ever get no true answers.
On the show. Put it on the Minecraft.net feedback site now. Get it upvoted. We got to get Jeff on the podcast.
I would like to have a chat with Jeff over why some things are broken and how. And I'm not bashing the developers because I've done a lot of game stuff in the past. I did a lot of modding for a lot of different games and everything. So it's like, how does something that's been fixed and or a bug become a bug again? Like I've had this theory forever that the game is being worked on by people working on different versions of it. So like the wild update that you're talking about, the core base game that the people are working on, I feel like they're still in like 1.17 or something like that. So all these bugs that are getting fixed in 1.18, I have a strong suspicion, and you've seen it, bugs coming back, will be presented again when 1.19 drops, because the people who are making 1.19 were working on 1.17 code.
Yeah, do you know what, Slack? That makes absolutely perfect sense. And we have talked about this before. The fact that we believe that the update system is cyclic like that, because that makes sense. They have to start working on 1.19 before 1.18 is finished because, well, if they've got delays like they did have with 1.18, then 1.19 is going to be delayed. And which version are they going to work on? Well, they're not going to start working on a completely broken version of it that's, not finished yet. They're going to work on a stable release. So that makes sense that they would do it on a slightly older version. Now, not necessarily 1.17 or the last version of 1.17, maybe an earlier stable release version of 1.18 that they got out already, or that they'd had on file somewhere already. But yeah, that makes sense. So bugs from 1.16 turn up in 1.18 but not 1.17. Bugs in 1.17 go away in 1.18 but come back in 1.19. And we do see that really regularly. And I'd love that as well. I'd absolutely love to just sit down and find out, like, not necessarily just have a chat with a developer about it, just be a fly on the wall and just find out how does that happen. You know, not like to point fingers at them and say, hey, you've done a bad job or anything like that. Just to understand it. And I think the community would do well to understand these things as well, just so there isn't so much anger and hatred towards the developers when things go wrong or when their entities despawn or all the villagers disappear when they turn around. I think knowing that these things are human error or, you know, these are because this, that, and the other, and it just can happen I think that would go a long way. So maybe, you know, that's something they could add into these Minecraft Now live streams. That'd be good.
Well, it would be really nice. Okay, so let's say that it did happen, something like that, okay? Say they were working on a stable release of 1.17.8 or whatever. Say one of the last releases is when they started developing 1.19, okay?
Yep.
And then 1.18, we find this bug, and we find this bug, and we find this bug. Well, they get to 1.19, they release it, and we've introduced these old bugs then. If we as the community know and can help them, I mean, literally people on the Jira, on the bug reports now are actually posting, this is how you fix the problem. It's like something trivial, like a parity difference right here, right now, Foxy, being able to crouch the 1.5 blocks. You know how to fix that right now. I know how to fix that.
Yeah,
we can put that in Bedrock in minutes. Why is it not in here already?
Because it's not an active, you know, again, cynical FoxyNoTail here, talking about Minecraft as a business rather than from that. We look at this from the player's perspective of we play with this every day. We're really passionate about it. We love it. We want it to be better. We see things that someone else has got and we want them because we think, well, that I can put that into the game, so why can't you? That's a really, really narrow-minded perspective on it, but that's the perspective we're going to have because that's where we're coming from. That's our angle on the game. You're wiggling your finger at me. What?
It's not a priority to them. Why?
It's not a priority at all.
Because a lot of them, let's face it, think of a lot of the big people in Minecraft that play Minecraft. They play Java. Put them on Bedrock for a few weeks, and I guarantee you some of these things would be fixed. They would become a priority.
Yeah, that I agree with you, but I think what my point was there was the developers at Bedrock Edition and Java Edition, although two separate studios effectively under the same name, are run by Microsoft, who pay their wages, and those people, they turn up, they go to work, it's their job to do it. They're probably not even remotely interested in playing Minecraft, and if they are, they're probably a little bit sick of this and a bit sick of that, and they're probably really, really sick of people telling them how broken everything, all the hard work and stuff they do is.
That's true.
They get allotted a certain amount of time to work on bug fixes, and they go through the list and they find one that's easy to do and they do it. But whatever it is, you know, it depends where that bug fix that me and you want fixed is up on the list. It's fresh in our minds. We see that as easy to do, but it might not come up to them. And don't forget how the bug report system works. The naming of some of those bugs that are on there is awful. It's so difficult to tell what the bug is actually about without actually reading into it. And if you're a developer that's at work, that's got better things to be doing with their time, you're going to want to just glance at it quickly, find something and go, oh, I can fix that. You know, we've had discussions with people before that have worked on development of Minecraft privately that have said that, you know, we get allotted a certain amount of free time to work on bugs, not hey, we're told we need to fix these bugs. For Microsoft, who have got 30% more players this year than they had last year, when more people were available at home to be able to play it, they're clearly making more money. They're clearly making more sales. Their priority isn't we need to fix this game to make sales. The priority is keep doing what you're doing. Keep putting out updates. Keep giving them more stuff. Keep selling this game. The developers have to do what they're told. That's their job. If they don't do as they're told, they're going to get fired. They might sit there and wish they could solve all the problems and fix all the bugs, but realistically, they just can't. So, yeah, it's a real toughie from our perspective, but I tell you what, I'd much rather be a player that's frustrated with the bugs than being in a developer's shoes, wishing I could deal with it, being told how rubbish I am at my job and how I'm not doing it properly by all of the community, and then still having to do that job day in, day out. Yeah. And they don't finish at 9 o'clock or 5 o'clock when they finish work. They're on Twitter in the evening. They're on Twitter at the weekend. Their phone's going off all the time telling them, hey, you know, do you realize what bug you put in this week? This is awful. Fix it. And they're going, I wish I could.
Yeah.
Wish I could.
Yeah, well, we've literally heard inside reports. Now, the truth of these, we can't confirm nor deny that some people actually work on the bugs in their 100% free time that they're not paid. I mean, how does that even happen? I mean, the Microsoft runs this place. How is a game as big as Minecraft with as many updates coming out as it's got, are people having to take free time to fix bugs? So yeah, I can see their point of view. But as a passionate content creator and or gamer, hopefully they can see mine too. I'm just saying.
Yeah, it's telling the people at the top and it's telling the shareholders, isn't it? At the end of the day, look at the gaming industry over the last couple of years. Most games now, AAA titles particularly, are coming out unfinished, unready, riddled with bugs, and in a state that on most of the time is okay. We can get away with fixing it in a couple of months. But look at Cyberpunk. That's still broken now, right?
Or a game that comes out and you preload it and you download 200 gigs and then day of launch you get a 300 gig patch. You're like,
yeah,
excuse me.
Constant at the moment this is how development seems to be. Games are getting more and more complicated, harder to do. They have targets they've got to meet from the studios. They've got targets they've got to meet from the platforms. They've got targets they've got to meet from their shareholders. And if something goes wrong and they get behind, there is no wiggle room. So we, as the user, end up with a lower than acceptable standard of games, which is now becoming the new standard. Well, it's okay. It doesn't have to be very good. We can fix it later, which is not a good attitude, but that's the attitude it seems to be now.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think we could continue to talk about this subject all day long. Because we're all passionate about it. But let's move on to the next one here. And the next question comes from Big Baby. And this is kind of a two-part question. Now, we kind of touched on this one last week a little bit, but not the second part of this question. And the questions are, without getting into a Bedrock Java parity debate, what is one of the things that you wish they would add to Bedrock from Java? And what is something you hope that they do not add to Bedrock from Java? Foxy? Okay.
Me and you wrote down your answers to this first, and I wrote down the exact answers as you, because we both believe that, not just because I'm lazy and I copied Slack, but because it's the same thing. But this is going to lead me onto a tangent as well, Slack, so I hope you're ready.
I'm ready.
One I want more than anything else with Parity is offhand use. I don't even care if I can use anything other than a torch in my offhand, but just being able to hold a pickaxe in one hand and a torch in the other and put torches down as you're mining, it would be a massive, massive thing for Bedrock Edition.
Yes.
The one I definitely don't want them to bring over from Java Edition is quasi-connectivity, which will be going, well, a lot of people will be like, oh, but we want that because we can do piston, this, that, and it. No, that's a bug. It shouldn't be in the game, but SciCraft people and the technical community kicked off when they fixed it because it broke all of their stuff, so the developers felt bullied in to put it back in again. It's not logical. It doesn't make sense. Redstone should make sense. Yes, Redstone needs fixing because it's all kinds of broken. Observers don't actually observe things half the time, in my experience. There's all sorts of weird stuff going on with randomness and hopper timings. That aside, fix it, yes, but don't give me quasi-connectivity at the same time. I don't want that. But that's not the tangent I was going to go on, believe it or not, Slack.
Well, I would agree with everything you said there. Offhanding tools, I absolutely want that, especially for mending, like setting at a mob farm or something like that, being able to attack with the sword, repair my pick. I would love that. Quasi-connectivity, I have no desire to want. And I would actually argue that Redstone, from a Redstoner's point of view, makes more sense on Bedrock than it does on Java, with the exception of we got the random update orders, which I don't like. Like you set down three pistons in a row and you hit them with redstone dust. Piston 1 fires first, and then piston 1 and 3 fire, and then piston 2 fires. It give us a proper order. That's all I'm asking for. I don't want quasi connectivity, but I just want proper order. That would make the most sense to me. So we can agree on both of those and everything like that. So what's the tangent you wanted to go on about this one?
Well, funnily enough, after MegaSpud, or Jay, put his tweet out that we talked about earlier, asking about what small parity things that we would like to see added to, or across versions, basically, I responded to that saying that I would like to see the use of offhand tools, which you could argue, and somebody did argue, that that's not a particular a particularly small parity request, which is fine. But that's what I'd like when it comes to parity. Now, 2 people then took it upon themselves to tell me how wrong I was, how this was an incorrect opinion, because it's not fair for... it got all kinds of out of control slack. It was crazy. You know how Twitter can get sometimes? Basically, somebody asked me, how's that going to work across all of the different control systems? Like, it's going to be very difficult for people to do on touchscreen, which I agree, it probably would. Although the people at Minecraft are very clever and very good at coming up with new things, I'm sure they could figure out a way to make it work on touchscreen. But I argued saying, well, look, okay, if you play on Windows 10, you can't use crouch hold like you can on touchscreen.
Agree.
You just have to not do, you have to hold shift, which is, yes, a way of crouching, but it's not a feature that we have on Windows 10. If you play on console, you don't have access to stuff that's on Windows 10. If you play on touch, you don't have access to stuff that's on Windows 10 and vice versa.
Yeah.
Each control method works differently and limits options what's in the game. So the argument, we can't have this as a general rule because it won't work on this particular control device, to me is mute. If it's something that's an optional thing to do in game rather than something required, it shouldn't matter if you need to use a controller or keyboard and mouse or touchscreen, because then you've got a choice. Every single version of Minecraft now, or Bedrock Edition, you can plug in a keyboard and mouse or a wireless keyboard and mouse, even on your phone through Bluetooth. You can use a controller, and the same with the consoles. You can plug a controller in. You can use keyboard and mouse on a console, and with Windows 10, if it's got a touchscreen interface, you can use touchscreen, or you can plug a controller in, or you can use keyboard and mouse. The only one that is lacking is console, because obviously there's no touchscreen console unless you're using something like Nintendo Switch, or you've got some weird hybrid device that you've probably invented yourself in your grandma's garage.
Right.
My point being, if they gave us the use of the offhand, which worked on Windows 10, but didn't work on console because they couldn't find a spare button for it on the controller, it's not the end of the world, because you can have something on one that is not there on the other without the world collapsing, you know?
That's as simple as, by default, when you play on mouse and keyboard, you already have a button bound to pick block. Guess what? On the controller, you don't.
Exactly. And the same with touchscreen. How do you can't even, there's no F5 to spin your character around on touchscreen, but we've still got it on Windows 10.
Give you the option to rebind it. I know when I played with a controller, I did not have a pick block button. So the D-pad that doesn't always get used, guess what? I remapped one of the buttons for pick block on my controller.
Exactly. So my point is, and my argument was, that it doesn't matter what control systems are limited in what way. If you put the feature in the game, people will find a way of using it, whether that's plugging in a controller or a keyboard and mouse instead of using the touchscreen, or whatever. People will find a way of using it. We shouldn't be limited in general because one person can't, you know?
Yeah.
And then they came at me with, well, what are you saying then? Is if when they sell Minecraft, they're going to have to sell everybody a controller so they can use it on touchscreen. And this is where it got out crazy and blew my mind that people could be this arrogant about it. And I'm just like, look, I've had an opinion. This is my opinion. You don't have to like it. You've clearly got your opinion. We don't have to agree. It's fine. But then they carried on. And they carried on, and I just ignored them.
Yeah, that's where it becomes a problem. You know, you're allowed your opinion. I'm allowed my opinion. At the end of the day, I don't have to agree with your opinion. You don't have to agree with mine. We got many differences of opinions, do we not, Foxy? Me and you on personal levels and life. We can still be friends. We just know there's certain subjects we don't need to talk about.
We don't need to agree on it. Like.
Exactly. And we can still be friends. This is one of those things. There's so many different ways to play Minecraft. Give us the option. That's all we're asking for, is give us the option. That's it.
Exactly.
I mean, touchscreen can reach out there an extra block. I would like to reach out there an extra block on the PC. Do you hear me complaining about it? No. I'm just saying. That's me just acknowledging, hey, they have an advantage over PC players. So you PvP somebody with a touchscreen, guess what? They can reach out there and hit you before you can hit them. Where's the parity in that?
Exactly. So, so if you are one of these particular people that get all upset about the fact that parity isn't the same across control systems, then please get a grip, have a word with yourself, and consider you might want to be a little bit more open-minded about it than you currently are being.
Indeed.
Anyway, Moving on.
Moving on. Next question of the night is brought to you by Deadly Nightshade. And an interesting one here. It's who is better at survival Minecraft across the board?
Do you want me to go first or are you going to go first?
I think we're pretty much in agreement on this one, so I'll let you explain this one out.
Okay, so who is better at survival Minecraft across the board? I'm assuming means we can pick out of literally anybody we know of to say who's better at survival Minecraft. There's a problem with that because survival Minecraft can be played in literally any way that you want. And to compare people is not a fair thing to do. It's not comparable to say one person is better at it than another because I think this is a good question, by the way. I'm not putting this question down. It's a great question because it gives us the opportunity to talk about this. If you had two people that were doing PvP, you could say that person's better at PvP because they kill more people and die less. If you had two people doing parkour, you can say that person's better at parkour because they get to the end faster without falling off. I wouldn't win either of those. Slack would definitely be better. And if you were asking me about parkour, well, from what I've seen and played with, I've never seen anybody be able to jump around a parkour course like Silent Whisper. It's incredible. I don't know how he does it. I'm pretty sure he's cheating.
Yeah.
The point is, survival Minecraft is not comparable. You can't say one person's better or one person's worse because it's too general. One person might be the best builder ever, but be terrible at going mining or terrible at end raiding. And one person might be brilliant at end raiding, but terrible at building. It doesn't matter whether you're good or bad. As long as you're enjoying the game, then you are good at the game, in my perspective.
Yeah, I would agree on that. I would say survival Minecraft, there's no right or wrong way. There's no you're better than anyone else. It's a game. Have fun.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and that just takes me on one little thing. The one little niggle of mine is, I don't know whether you're aware of this, Slack, but I'm sure a lot of people in my community will know that I despise labels and categories. I hate anybody putting me into a category or putting themselves into categories. I'm a big believer that everybody should just be happy with who they are and not try and fit into something else and try and be normal, because nobody's normal. Everybody's just completely different and unique and individual, and that's what makes us all special and interesting.
I would totally agree.
When I see the question, are you a redstoner? Are you a builder? Are you this? Are you that or the other? I instantly, my heckles go up and I think, no, I'm not any of those. I just play Minecraft. I'm
a gamer.
Yeah, most people ask that question completely instantly just to try and get an idea of what your angle is on Minecraft, which is fair because if you're interested in watching people who are good at building, you want to know if that person is a builder, or at least if they're good at building. But going, are you a builder, makes that person feel like that's all they're known for, and therefore their redstone's no good, or their PvP's no good, or this, that, or the other. So when we're considering these things, maybe consider it with less labels and less categories and just saying, hey, do you like building? Are you good at building? Hey, do you like redstone? Do you like making farms? And therefore you're not putting anyone in a box that they're feeling trapped in. And I just think that's a better attitude to have towards people that play Minecraft, really.
I agree. Okay.
Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. I think that's a great one. I'm just sitting here looking at the next question, and I'm thinking it needs to be broke up into two parts now that I really look at it.
Okay.
Well, it's technically a two-parter. It's by Fieldy YT, so I'm going to guess that's YouTube. And the whole question is, why did you start YouTube and how did you two meet? Now, that kind of, let's split that one at the middle. Let's cut how did you two meet into its own category, and why you started YouTube. You more or less answered that one last week when we were talking about how, what advice do you give to anybody who's starting YouTube?
Okay.
The answer to mine is more or less just community. That's the short answer, that without going into a long drawn out story. That's the simplest answer that I can give you for mine, was to create a community. But I'm looking here at the how did you two meet? And oh dear God, there's so many ways to go into that.
Only person that can tell this story, Slack.
All right, so we actually met in two different ways. The first way that I would say that we met was on YouTube comments. Did you know that Foxy's actually the first person I ever dropped a comment on a video on? I've had my YouTube account for since pretty much the inception of YouTube, and I never commented on a video till I watched one of his. And I watched his video that was called Bedrock is So Broken. I still go back and watch that video to this day just for laughs. That video makes me die of laughter. What was going on in that video was Foxy was trying to record a time lapse. So he took survival off of his world, turned on creative, turned on cheats so that he could record a time lapse with Chuck. And he wanted to use Chuck to record the time lapse while he was doing some nice buildy things. Now, in that video, long story short, if you haven't seen it, I would highly recommend you go watch it. It is without a doubt one of my favorite Foxy videos ever. I'm sorry. I know you've done so many, but to this day, that's still one of my favorite videos of yours ever. Ever.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
But that was the episode I became a Foxy fan on, by the way. When I started playing Bedrock, I was looking for Bedrock content creators who knew stuff about farms. Like I found your stuff about Guardian farms before anyone else's. I found Groova's stuff about ticking areas before anybody else had info out there. So watching you do that, trying to do that, and you tried to go to sleep. Chuck was still up and awake, and it wouldn't work. And you were raging over the fact that both players, even in creative, needed to sleep. And yes. I responded on that video. The comments are still on that video to this day. I was like, hey, did you know that it's possible to have one player sleep on Bedrock Edition? I'm not going to say that Foxy's a little bold and a little arrogant sometimes and just kind of believes his own thing. But of course, his response was immediately, no, that's rubbish. You can't do it. And we went back and forth in the comments.
Can I just qualify?
Yes.
At the time, I had been playing on a realm with some other people who considered themselves to be very technical and very knowledgeable about command blocks. And we had been running a one-player sleep system, which was not acceptable because you had to stand on the bed to pass the time. It worked day or night, and it was just, as far as I'm concerned, for quality standards, not suitable. You could not call it a one-player sleep system because it was awful. All it was if you stand on the bed, time will pass quickly, which is not a one-player sleep system. That was my only experience and reference to it, and in my mind, there was no other way to do it.
Right. I know, which one made it great on
this
the
is
very
before the add-ons,
first,
by the way.
Made it great in the first episode of Truly Bedrock. FoxyNoTail promoting my one player sleep at that time, just a couple months later. It was just absolutely amazing. So our first interaction was, believe it or not, an argument in the comment section. But guess what? I didn't get my feelings hurt. You know, I'm just saying we had a difference of opinion, and I just knew I was right because I wrote the system that worked.
You know now from what you've had. I don't think you'd have had a great deal of experience with it yourself at that point. You probably have now. Is that how many people in your comments will tell you something point blank? This is correct information. I have done it. Yes, it's definitely right, and it turns out they haven't even tried and it's wrong. Okay, so
I know. Yeah.
It's your natural reaction as a content creator when you see something that you don't believe because you've also tried it and you know it's the other way around is to just think, well, that's nonsense, which unfortunately I did because of my arrogance in not being able to see that there was another way of doing it. But to be fair to me, the way you were doing it was bizarre, but it worked perfectly.
Yeah, it was bizarre. It was bizarre and it was crazy, but it did work. So that's how we first interacted. The story on how we first met. Oh dear God, do we even have time to go into that today?
Is this Broke Rock and the inception of Truly Bedrock?
Yeah, this is Broke Rock, and this is the origin story of Truly Bedrock. Is where that would go, because that's where we.
Shall I field this one in a gentle and quick manner?
Yes, gentle and quick manner, and we can go into a full in-depth one later if ever needed. Go for it.
Okay. I got invited to to become part of an SMP that was called Broke Rock, and it was I'd been playing multiplayer with my patrons at that point, and I'd always wanted to be part of a content creator SMP, and I thought about starting one, but the the nervousness of starting one is that you don't think anybody's going to want to join you, or they might have different opinions, so I never even considered doing one myself. So I was really pleasantly surprised when I got invited to one. And it wasn't a group of particularly big content creators. There weren't people there with millions of subscribers and things like that. And I didn't know. I don't think I knew or had heard of many of them other than like brief passing in the communities. But I thought, you know what? I'm going to give this a go. And we got involved, and I'm not going to put anybody down from there or say anything bad about them, but needless to say, we had a very, very strong difference of opinion as to how an SMP should be run, which I should have just decided was not a good thing for me to be involved in and just walked away, but instead it ended up having a little bit of an argument as I was telling them what I thought they should be doing and how they should be doing
controversial? You argue?
Yeah. Hey, we've invited you to this thing, and then all you've done is told us we're doing it wrong. Yeah, sorry about that, guys. So anyway, Slack was there, and so were a couple of the other early TB members, and I basically ended up saying, look, okay, I really want to do something that's going to last, is going to work, and is done for all of the right reasons as per my own opinions. I'm not interested in going down this path. I don't think it's right. But if anyone wants to come and do the way that I think it should be done, then the door is open. Let's go and start something together. And Slack and these other two people immediately jumped onto it and went, yes, let's start something together. And we created Truly Bedrock.
Yep, that's the short, very skinny version of how that all went down. Yep.
Yes. Needless to say, on both sides of it, myself included, and that side, it wasn't particularly a nice experience or a nice place to be. And I'm very glad it worked out the way it did, because Truly Bedrock's amazing and everything we've done so far has been brilliant.
Yes, absolutely. I'm ecstatic with where it began. God, just thinking back, I remember the announce day of Truly Bedrock after we had recorded. I had like 50 subs, and you dropped your first trailer. Silent dropped his first trailer. Groover dropped his. And like I gained like 100 subs that day on YouTube before the first video ever dropped. And I was like, oh my God. I remember the excitement of just logging in. Me, nobody at this time, purely nobody. I still consider myself nobody. But logging in at that time.
So do I. Not you, me.
Logging in to the realm.
Yeah. Wow.
With you being there, all these people I had watched, Rogue Fox, Silent Whisperer, Groova, Zloy, and I'm like, I'm sitting here like nobody with no subs, and I'm just like, I literally had to turn off my mic and fanboy, I guess is the way to say it. Yeah,
I've no idea how the others felt, but I was equally nervous. I was equally like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm doing this with these people. This is absolutely wonderful. This is amazing. And it went so well, and we all just got on so well. It was great. What I will say, though, you've just picked up on something there, how many subscribers you got just from the sort of announcing it. That makes it sound a little bit, I don't know, maybe it doesn't, maybe it's just me overthinking it, but it makes it sound a little bit like we were doing it for the subs. That's actually one of the opposite reasons we were doing it. Yeah. One of the things we started Truly Bedrock for was the ethos that we are doing this because we enjoy it and we are wanting to put out fun and interesting content for our audience. We are not in it to grow audiences off each other. We're not in it to generate subscribers. We're not in it to sell stuff or advertise or create profit from our combined audience. We are doing it because we want to create something that's entertaining and enjoyable and family friendly and something that people can respect and have faith in and realize, hey, this is good. This isn't here to try and rip me off. This isn't got underlying connotations of how much money can I get out of you? How can I sell to you? How many more subscribers or followers do I get? This is just genuinely good content that me and my family can enjoy. And that's our ethos. That's what we strive for. And if you don't get that feeling from Truly Bedrock, I'm sorry, you should do. I'm hoping that everybody does, if you've obviously come across it and watched any of the members or any of our videos at least.
Yeah, I would agree on that. I would say that's probably in our core section on our Truly Bedrock member guidelines. Just saying. Yeah. Just saying. Not that we have secret guidelines at all.
We don't have rules. There's no rules really on Truly Bedrock. There's a few things that we think is going, well, I suppose we do have some rules, I guess, in that sense. But we do have guidelines.
Yeah, guidelines.
You know, we have guidelines. This is our ethos. This is what we need to be aiming for. And, you know, and everybody's on board with that. And it's great.
Yeah. Well, it's treat it like, you know, Barbosa said, you know, more like guidelines than actual rules, you know. It's kind of like change logs. Well, they're more like guidelines than actual changes.
Yeah. Exactly. And you've heard the phrase, rules are there to be broken, right? Well, these are not rules. They're guidelines, so don't break them or I'll get you.
Or I'll ban you.
Right.
Yes.
We have covered, I believe, everything we wanted to talk about in today's live stream, apart from one thing, Slack.
What's
that is to tell everybody how wonderful we are as individuals and how you should check out everything we're going to be doing over the next week on YouTube, Twitch, and all of those other good things. I'm going to start with myself because I'm selfish and say that I'm going to be streaming on YouTube on Monday morning, GMT time zone on YouTube. What? I've written that twice. I'm going to be streaming on YouTube. Good job. That'll be around about 10 a.m. on Monday. I'll also be streaming on Tuesday and Thursday evenings over on Twitch at 7 p.m. GMT. My videos and shorts and all that other good stuff will come out as normal. What about you, Slack?
Well, videos are going to be coming out on YouTube on Tuesdays and Fridays as per normal. Streams are pretty much the same. I'm starting to branch back into Tuesdays, starting at 11 a.m. Eastern Time to usually about 1 p.m. Eastern Time, pretty much Tuesday through Sunday. Now, I'm debating a change. I don't know what day yet. If you want to be up to date on my stream schedules and updates, the best place you could keep up to date on that would be the Discord. But I've got to work in YouTube streaming into this. I feel like it's a thing. My experience with it here a while back was just good, and I've been wanting to do it again. I just haven't got around to it. But yeah, that's more or less the schedule for me for the next coming week.
Speaking of Discords, Slack just brought up there, we do both have our own personal Discords. The links to those will be in the description below if you want to catch up with us on those. And also don't forget, if you do want to get in touch with us for the sole purposes of this and you don't want to go around joining random Discords, then you can email us on theminecraftupdatepod@gmail.com and ask questions, leave feedback, whatever you want. Just get in touch. But yeah, we've both got Discords and we've both got Twitter, so we're available 24/7, apart from when we're sleeping, busy, or just don't feel like talking to you.
Yeah, exactly. That's the beautiful thing of the internet. If I don't want to deal with you that way, I don't have to.
Exactly. Right, and on that note, I'm gonna do the off, Slack. Thank you very much for being part of this again this week. I've had an amazing time. Feel like it went very well.
It did.
I can't wait for the next one.
Exactly.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.